The stars looked cold and empty through the bridge windows of the UES Defiance. Captain Jake Miller stood with his hands behind his back, watching the darkness that stretched forever in all directions. 6 months ago, those same stars had watched Earth burn. Now they were all that remained of home. "Captain, we're picking up long-range signals again," said Pete Walsh from his communications station. His voice was quiet, like everyone's voice these days. Speaking too loud felt wrong when you were the last humans in the galaxy. Jake turned away from the window. The bridge of the Defiance was small and cramped. Nothing like the grand starships in the old movies. Wires hung from open panels where Amy Brooks had been working to keep their stolen alien technology running. The smell of burned circuits and recycled air filled every corner. "What kind of signals, Pete?" Pete's fingers moved across his control panel. The young man had been fresh out of communications school when Earth fell. Now he was their only link to the outside universe. "Multiple sources, Captain. All hegemony frequencies. They're talking about something big." Amy Brooks looked up from where she was crawling under a console. Her engineer's uniform was stained with grease and alien fluids from their makeshift repairs. "How big?" she asked. Jake walked over to Pete's station. The communications officer's face was pale in the blue light from his screens. Behind them, the soft hum of the ship's engines provided the only sound that meant they were still alive and moving through space. "Play it," Jake said. The alien voices filled the bridge. Even through the translation software, Jake could hear the excitement in their tone. The hegemony had 12 different species, and each one sounded different when they spoke. Some hissed, others made clicking sounds, and a few sounded almost musical, but they all said the same thing. "The ultimate fleet gathers at Nexus Prime. 10,000 vessels from every world of the hegemony. The human plague will finally be eliminated." Amy climbed out from under her console and stood up, wiping her hands on a dirty cloth. 10,000 ships, she said. "That's more than their entire military." "It's every ship they have," said Jake. He knew the numbers by heart. Before Earth fell, human intelligence had counted maybe 8,000 active hegemony vessels spread across 50 star systems. They had built more ships just to hunt down one human destroyer. Ben Rogers stepped forward from his tactical station. The weapons officer was older than most of the crew, a veteran of the border wars before the hegemony had revealed their true power. "Captain, we can't fight 10,000 ships. Hell, we can barely fight 10 ships, Jake nodded. He knew Ben was right. The Defiance had started life as a simple destroyer, built to patrol trade routes and chase pirates. When the war began, they had added whatever weapons they could find. Now the ship was covered in alien technology that Amy and her team had torn from wreckage and enemy vessels. It worked mostly, but it was held together with hope and spare parts. "How many people do we have left?" Jake asked. 847, said Dr. Lisa Carter from the science station. She was the closest thing they had to a census taker these days. "We lost 3 more this week. Old age and stress. The children are healthy, but the older refugees..." She didn't need to finish. Everyone on the ship knew they were dying slowly. Not from enemy fire, but from the simple fact that 847 people couldn't rebuild a civilization. They needed planets, resources, and most of all, they needed hope. "Captain," said Pete, "and there's more to the transmission." The alien voices returned, but this time they were different, colder, more formal. Jake recognized the tone of an official announcement. "By order of the Hegemony Council, the human ship designated as Pest Vessel will be located and destroyed within 1 solar rotation. The galaxy will be cleansed of this chaos-bringing species. All vessels will converge on Grid Section 7 Alpha for final sweep operations." Grid Section 7 Alpha. Jake felt his stomach tighten. That was only 2 days away at maximum speed. Amy was already running calculations on her portable tablet. "Captain, if they're doing a complete sweep of 7 Alpha, they'll find us. This asteroid field won't hide us from 10,000 sensors." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him for 6 months through the worst defeat in human history. They were engineers, scientists, communications officers, and pilots. They were parents, children, teachers, and farmers. They were all that remained of Earth. "What are our options?" he asked. Ben checked his tactical display. "We can run, jump to another system and hope they don't follow. Maybe find somewhere in the outer rim to hide." "For how long?" asked Dr. Carter. "A year? 5 years? We can't run forever, and we can't rebuild with just 847 people. So what do you suggest?" Jake asked. The bridge fell silent. Outside the windows, the dead asteroid they were hiding behind slowly rotated. showing its scarred surface. Somewhere in the distance, 10,000 alien warships were preparing to end the human race forever. Amy spoke first. "We fight." Ben laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Amy, we're one ship." "They have 10,000, so what?" Amy said, standing up straighter. "We're humans. We don't give up just because the odds are bad." "The odds aren't bad," said Ben. "They're impossible." "Then we do the impossible," said Jake quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "That's what humans do, isn't it? When everyone else says something can't be done, we do it anyway." Dr. Carter nodded slowly. "There is something else. That alien artifact we recovered from the architect's station last month. I've been studying it, and it responds to human neural patterns in ways I don't understand. It might be a weapon or a tool or something else entirely." "Something else like what?" asked Jake. "I don't know yet. But whatever it is, only humans can make it work. The previous alien owners couldn't activate it at all." Jake walked back to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his enemy was gathering the largest fleet in galactic history just to kill 847 humans. It should have been flattering in a terrible way. "Pete, send a message to all sections," Jake said. "All hands meeting in the main cargo bay in 1 hour. It's time to tell everyone what we're facing." "Yes, sir." Jake turned back to his crew. "And start thinking about how we're going to win this fight. Because we are going to win. We're going to take on 10,000 alien ships and we're going to beat them." Ben shook his head. "Captain, with respect, how do you figure that?" Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. "Because we're human, Ben, and humans don't know when to quit." The Nexus system blazed with 10,000 points of light. Each point was a warship from the hegemony fleet, and together they formed the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Supreme Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the final ships arrive through the jump gates. "Status report," he commanded in his deep, growling voice. The Karathi were a proud warrior race, and Vextar was their greatest military leader. His blue-scaled skin gleamed under the bridge lights as he studied the tactical displays. "All fleets have arrived, Supreme Admiral," reported his aide. "The Shardling crystal ships, the Zephyri biovessels, the energy beings from the Outer Rim. Every species has sent their best warships." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The ultimate fleet represented the combined military might of 12 alien civilizations. There were massive dreadnoughts that could destroy planets, swarms of fighters that moved like deadly clouds, and ships so advanced they existed partially in other dimensions. No force in the galaxy had ever faced such overwhelming power. "Begin the hunt," Vextar ordered. "Spread the fleet in search pattern Alpha 7. The human ship cannot hide from us now." 2 days later and 3 systems away, Captain Jake Miller watched the alien fleet disperse across the star maps. The Defiance hung in the shadow of a gas giant's moon, running silent while Pete Walsh monitored enemy communications. "They're splitting up into smaller groups," Pete reported. "Looks like search patterns covering every system in a 50 light-year radius." Amy Brooks looked up from her workstation where she was connecting more alien technology to their ship's systems. "How small are the smaller groups?" "About 200 ships each," said Pete. Ben Rogers whistled low. 200 ships is still a lot more than one." Jake studied the tactical display. The alien search pattern was methodical and thorough, exactly what he expected from the hegemony. They followed rules and procedures, dividing space into neat sections and searching each one completely before moving to the next. "What if we don't let them search?" Jake asked. "What do you mean?" said Amy. "They're looking for us, right? So let's give them something to find, but not where they expect to find it." Dr. Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge carrying her tablet and looking excited. Over the past 2 days, she had barely left her laboratory. "Captain, I need to show you something about that artifact." Jake turned to face the ship's chief scientist. Dr. Carter was a small woman with graying hair who had spent most of her career studying alien technology. Before the war, her research had been purely academic. Now it might be the key to human survival. "What did you find?" Jake asked. "The artifact responds to human emotions," she said. "Not just neural patterns, but actual emotional states. When I was frustrated with my research, the device became more active. When I was calm, it went dormant." "What kind of device becomes more active when you're angry at it?" asked Ben. "I don't think it's a device exactly," said Dr. Carter. "I think it's something else. Something that wants to work with us, not for us." Before Jake could ask more questions, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Pete's voice came over the intercom system. "Contact. alien patrol group at the edge of the system. 12 ships moving in standard search formation. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Red alert! All hands to battle stations. The bridge came alive with activity. Amy sealed the open panels and brought all systems online. Ben powered up their weapons, a mix of human missiles and alien energy cannons they had salvaged from previous fights. Dr. Carter clutched her tablet and moved to a secure position. Distance to contact? Jake asked. 4 million kilometers in closing, reported Kate Sullivan from the navigation station. The young officer's hands moved steadily across her controls, calculating jump routes and escape vectors. They haven't seen us yet, said Pete. They're following their search pattern, but they'll be in sensor range in 10 minutes. Jake made his decision. Take us in, Kate, attack course. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at him. Ben spoke first. Captain, that's 12 ships. We might be able to take 1 or 2, but 12? We're not going to fight 12 ships, Jake said. We're going to fight 1 ship 12 times. Kate's fingers moved across her navigation controls. Course laid in, Captain. Amy, how are our engines? Running at 90% efficiency, Amy replied. The alien power cores are holding steady. Ben, target their lead ship. Missiles first, then energy weapons. Aye, Captain. The Defiance moved out of the moon's shadow like a predator stalking prey. The human ship was much smaller than the alien vessels, but it was also much faster. Amy had modified their engines with technology from 3 different alien species, creating something that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Contact in 30 seconds, said Kate. Jake gripped the arms of his captain's chair. Fire when ready, Ben. The first missiles launched from the Defiance just as the alien patrol detected them. Human nuclear warheads mixed with alien plasma torpedoes streaked across space toward the lead enemy ship. The aliens tried to turn and bring their weapons to bear, but they were too slow. The lead ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Before the other 11 ships could react, the Defiance was already moving to its next target. Jump, Jake ordered. Kate activated their jump drive, and the Defiance disappeared from normal space. 2 seconds later, they reappeared behind the alien formation. Ben fired again, and another enemy ship died. Jump! They vanished and reappeared on the aliens' left flank. Another ship exploded. Jump! The alien patrol was in chaos. Their ships were designed to fight in formation, supporting each other with overlapping shields and coordinated fire. But the human ship kept appearing in different places, striking fast and disappearing before they could respond. This is impossible. Ben shouted over the noise of battle. How are we doing this? Because we're not following their rules, Jake replied. They expect us to fight like they do in straight lines with organized formations. But we're human. We fight dirty. Dr. Carter was watching her tablet during the battle, and her eyes went wide. Captain, the artifact. It's responding to the fight. The energy readings are off the charts. What's it doing? Jake asked as another alien ship exploded under their guns. I don't know, but it's definitely doing something. It's like it's excited. The battle continued for 20 more minutes. The Defiance jumped in and out of normal space, appearing wherever the aliens least expected them. Their weapons fired with inhuman accuracy, and their shields absorbed damage that should have destroyed them. When it was over, 12 alien ships were nothing but wreckage floating in space. The Defiance hung motionless among the debris, her crew breathing hard and staring at their tactical displays in disbelief. Damage report, Jake said quietly. Minor hull damage. Shields at 60%, Amy reported. We took some hits, but nothing serious. Casualties? None, Captain. Jake nodded and turned to Dr. Carter. What about the artifact? Still active, but the energy levels are dropping back to normal, she said. Captain, I think that device was helping us somehow. Our weapons were more accurate, our shields were stronger, our jump drive was faster. How is that possible? I don't know. But I intend to find out. Pete's voice interrupted them. Captain, I'm picking up hegemony communications. They're talking about the destroyed patrol. What are they saying? They're scared, sir. 12 ships destroyed by 1 human vessel, and they don't understand how we did it. They're calling us chaos bringers and reality distorters. Jake smiled grimly. Good. Let them be scared. Fear makes people make mistakes. He turned to address the bridge crew. Set course for the next system. If the hegemony wants to hunt us, we'll give them a hunt they won't forget. As the Defiance jumped to hyperspace, none of them noticed that the alien artifact in Dr. Carter's laboratory was glowing with a soft, warm light. The space station hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. It was massive, easily 10 times larger than the Defiance, with strange curves and angles that hurt to look at for too long. Kate Sullivan had found it 3 days ago while they were running from another hegemony patrol group. "Are you sure it's safe to dock?" Amy Brooks asked as she watched the station grow larger on the main screen. The structure was dark except for a few blinking lights that seemed to pulse in patterns nobody understood. "The scans show it's mostly empty," said Kate from her navigation station. "No life signs, minimal power. But Captain, those energy readings I'm getting, they don't match anything in our databases." Jake Miller stood on the bridge studying the ancient station. After 2 weeks of hit-and-run attacks against hegemony patrols, the Defiance needed repairs and supplies. More importantly, Dr. Carter had been begging him to find an architect facility where she could study the mysterious artifact properly. "What do we know about the architects?" Jake asked. Dr. Carter looked up from her research tablet. "Not much. They were an advanced species that disappeared from the galaxy about 50,000 years ago. They left behind ruins and technology, but no one has ever figured out how their devices work. Most alien species gave up trying to understand architect science centuries ago. But humans never tried before," said Jake. "Exactly. We might see something they missed." Ben Rogers was studying his tactical displays with a worried expression. "Captain, this feels like a trap. We dock with a mysterious alien station right when the entire hegemony fleet is hunting us?" "The hegemony has been hunting us for 6 months," Jake replied. "If we're going to find answers, we need to take some risks." Pete Walsh spoke up from his communication station. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. The station is transmitting, but it's not using any known hegemony frequencies." "What kind of transmission?" "I'm not sure. It's very faint, and the pattern is unlike anything I've seen before. But Captain, it started transmitting when we got close." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying it's responding to us?" "It looks that way, sir." Amy was already running system checks and preparing the docking procedures. "Captain, whatever that station is, our artifact is responding to it. Dr. Carter's readings are going crazy." Dr. Carter was indeed staring at her tablet with wide eyes. "The energy patterns are similar but much more complex." "Captain, I think this station was built by the same species that created our artifact." "The architects," Jake said quietly. "Yes. And if I'm right, this station might have answers about what the artifact really is." Jake made his decision. "Amy, dock us with the station. Ben, keep all weapons ready. Pete, monitor all frequencies for any sign of hegemony ships. If anything goes wrong, we leave immediately." "Aye, Captain." The docking process took 30 minutes. The architect station had docking ports, but they were designed for ships much different from human vessels. Amy had to modify their docking clamps and seal the connection with emergency patches. "Atmospheric readings are good," Amy reported. "The station has breathable air and normal gravity. Temperature is a little cold, but not dangerous." Jake selected a small team to explore the station. Himself, Dr. Carter, Amy, and 2 security officers. They armed themselves with the best weapons they had, a mix of human firearms and alien energy pistols they had captured. The station's interior was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The corridors were wide and tall, with smooth walls that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Strange symbols covered every surface, shifting and changing when nobody was looking directly at them. "This place feels alive," whispered one of the security officers. Dr. Carter was scanning everything with her instruments. "The technology is incredible. These walls aren't just decorated with symbols, the symbols are the walls. The entire station is one massive computer system." They walked deeper into the station, following Dr. Carter's readings toward what seemed to be a central chamber. The artifact in her pack was getting more active with every step, pulsing with warm light and humming softly. "Dr. Carter," said Amy, "how is this place still running after 50,000 years?" "I don't think it ever stopped running," Dr. Carter replied. "The architects built things to last forever." The central chamber was enormous, with a domed ceiling covered in moving constellations. In the center of the room stood a pillar of crystal that stretched from floor to ceiling. As soon as they entered the chamber, the artifact in Dr. Carter's pack began glowing brightly. "It's reacting to something," she said, taking the artifact out carefully. The moment she held it up, the crystal pillar began to glow as well. Suddenly, the chamber filled with light and sound. Images appeared in the air around them, not projected on screens, but floating freely like ghosts made of light. The images showed the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago, with the architect civilization at its height. "They're beautiful," Amy whispered. The architects looked almost human, but taller and more graceful. Their cities were works of art that floated in space, and their ships moved like living creatures through the stars. But as the images continued, they showed something else: the rise of the hegemony. 50,000 years ago, the alien species that now ruled the galaxy were primitive and violent. They fought constant wars and destroyed entire worlds for resources. The architects tried to guide them, to teach them peace and cooperation, but the aliens saw the architects as threats to their power. The final images showed the end. Not destruction, but transformation. The architects didn't die. They evolved beyond physical form, scattering their essence across the galaxy. But before they left, they planted seeds for the future. The images faded and new ones appeared. These showed Earth, and the slow development of human civilization. Jake realized with shock that he was watching his own species' history, but from the architect's perspective. "We're connected to them," Dr. Carter whispered. "Humans aren't just another species. We're their children." The crystal pillar pulsed, and suddenly Jake could hear voices in his mind. Not words, but thoughts and emotions that came from the station itself. "The children have returned," the voices said. "The inheritors of our legacy. Long have we waited for you to find your way home?" "Home?" Jake said out loud. "This galaxy was always meant for you." The others were caretakers, nothing more. But they forgot their purpose and tried to claim what was never theirs. Dr. Carter stepped closer to the crystal pillar. "You're the architects. You're still here. We are everywhere and nowhere. We are in the stations we built, the technology we left behind, and in the genes we gave your species. You have abilities the others do not. Creativity, adaptability, the power to make our technology work as it was intended." Amy was staring at her scanner readings. "Captain, the entire station is coming online." "Power levels are increasing all over the place," the architect voices continued. "The artifact you carry is a key, not to a single device, but to everything we built. With it, you can awaken our sleeping technology across the galaxy. You can reclaim your inheritance." "What inheritance?" Jake asked. "The power to reshape reality itself. The ability to make the impossible possible. You have already begun to use it without knowing. Your victories against impossible odds. Your ship's performance beyond its design limits. That is our technology responding to your human will." Dr. Carter was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "That's why the hegemony is so afraid of us. They know we're not just another primitive species. We're the return of their greatest nightmare." "Exactly. They remember the old stories, even if they pretend to forget. They know that when humans fully awaken to their potential, their time as rulers will end." Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders. "What do you want us to do?" "Survive, grow, become what you were always meant to be. The technology you need is scattered throughout this sector of space, hidden in stations like this one. Awaken it, use it. Show the galaxy that humanity has returned." The images faded, and the crystal pillars glowed dim to a soft pulse. Dr. Carter was holding the artifact, which was now glowing steadily with warm light. "Captain," Pete's voice crackled over their communicators. "We've got trouble. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple hegemony fleets converging on this system. Looks like they found us." Jake looked around the ancient chamber one last time. The architects had given them knowledge and power, but they still had to use it to survive. "How long until they arrive?" he asked. 6 hours, maybe less." Jake turned to his team. "We have work to do. Dr. Carter, can you download any information from this station?" "I think so. The artifact seems to be interfacing with their systems." "Then do it fast." "Amy, what's the status of our repairs?" "Almost complete, Captain. We could leave in an hour if we had to." "Good, we're not running this time. If the hegemony wants to fight us here, surrounded by architect technology, then let them come." As they worked to prepare for the coming battle, none of them noticed that throughout the station, ancient systems were awakening after 50,000 years of sleep. The ultimate fleet arrived like a storm made of metal and fire. 10,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace around the architect station, their weapons already charging for battle. Supreme Admiral Vextar stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. "There," he growled, pointing at the small human ship docked with the ancient station, "the pest that has embarrassed the hegemony for months. Today we end this." His aide studied the sensor readings with confusion. "Supreme Admiral, the station appears to be active. Power levels are much higher than they should be for a dead facility." "It doesn't matter," Vextar replied. "Even if the humans have awakened some old technology, they are still only one ship against 10,000. Begin the attack." On the bridge of the Defiance, Jake Miller watched the enemy fleet arrange itself in attack formation. The alien ships stretched across space in perfect lines, their massive hulls gleaming in the light of the system's star. It was the largest military force ever assembled, and it had come here to destroy 847 humans. "Captain," said Pete Walsh, his voice tight with fear, "they're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let's hear it," Jake said. Supreme Admiral Vextar's voice filled the bridge, translated into human speech by their computers. "Humans of the vessel Defiance, you have caused enough chaos in our galaxy. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make your species end a lesson that lasts forever." Jake walked to his communication station and activated the transmitter. "This is Captain Jake Miller of the United Earth ship Defiance. I have a message for the hegemony." He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. Amy Brooks was at her engineering station, her hands flying over the controls as she integrated the new architect technology into their systems. Ben Rogers stood ready at weapons, while Kate Sullivan plotted impossible maneuvers at navigation. Dr. Carter held the glowing artifact, her eyes reflecting its warm light. "We are human," Jake continued. "We don't surrender. We don't give up. And we sure as hell don't go quietly. You want to fight? You've got one." He cut the transmission and turned to Dr. Carter. "Doctor, is the artifact ready?" "As ready as it can be," she replied. "Captain, I need to warn you. When I activate this fully, things are going to change. I can feel the station's systems connecting with our ship, but I don't know exactly what will happen. Will it give us a chance against those odds?" "I think so. But Jake, we might not be the same people when this is over." Jake nodded. "Do it." Dr. Carter pressed her hands against the artifact, and immediately the bridge filled with light. But this wasn't the harsh glare of weapon fire. It was warm and alive like sunlight through leaves. The light spread through the ship's systems, connecting with every circuit and every crew member. Amy gasped as her engineering displays came alive with readings she had never seen before. "Captain? The ship. It's changing." Jake could feel it too. The Defiance was transforming around them, its hull reshaping and its systems evolving. The stolen alien technology they had bolted to their ship was integrating seamlessly with human engineering, creating something entirely new. "Power levels are off the charts," Amy reported. "We have energy sources I can't even identify." Outside, the architect's station was awakening as well. Ancient defense platforms emerged from hidden storage, their weapons charging with power that had slept for 50,000 years. The station itself began to change, its surface flowing like liquid metal as dormant systems came online. "All ships," Supreme Admiral Vextar commanded. "Open fire." 10,000 alien weapons fired at once. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and exotic matter weapons all converged on the tiny human ship. It should have been the end of humanity's last stand. Instead, the weapons passed harmlessly through the Defiance as if it weren't there. "Impossible," Vextar roared. "Fire again." The second salvo was even larger than the first, but the results were the same. The human ship seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, solid enough to fire its own weapons but insubstantial when attacked. Jake felt the ship's new capabilities flowing through his mind like water. He could sense the architect technology scattered throughout the star system, all of it responding to his will and the will of his crew. The artifact wasn't just a tool, it was a bridge, connecting human consciousness to technology that operated beyond normal physics, Tony. "Price to bridge," came the voice of their fighter, squadron leader over the intercom. "Captain, you need to see what's happening to our fighters." On the main screen, Jake watched as their small squadron of 12 human fighters launched from the Defiance. But as they flew toward the enemy fleet, the fighters began to change. Their hulls stretched and reformed, weapons appearing that had never been there before. The pilots' voices came over the radio, excited and amazed. "I can feel the ship responding to my thoughts," one pilot reported. "It's like we're connected directly to the controls." The human fighters moved through the alien fleet like dancers, dodging weapons fire that couldn't touch them and striking back with impossible precision. Each shot they fired found its target, and each maneuver they made defied the laws of physics. How are they doing that? Ben asked, staring at his tactical displays. They're not just flying the ships, said Dr. Carter, her eyes still glowing with reflected light from the artifact. They are the ships. The architect technology responds to human consciousness, human will. We're not limited by normal physics anymore. Supreme Admiral Vextar watched his massive fleet being torn apart by 12 human fighters and one impossible ship. His weapons officers reported that their targeting systems couldn't lock onto the human vessels, and their shields were useless against human weapons that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions. Bring up the planet killers, he ordered desperately. If we can't destroy them with conventional weapons, we'll use antimatter warheads. The largest ships in the Ultimate Fleet began charging their most powerful weapons. These were devices capable of destroying entire worlds, and Vextar was willing to use them in empty space if it meant ending the human threat. But as the weapons charged, Jake felt their presence in his mind. The architect technology had connected him not just to his own ship, but to every piece of advanced science in the system. He could sense the alien weapons building power, and more importantly, he could interfere with them. Amy, he said calmly, reroute all power to the quantum resonance array. Captain, we don't have a quantum resonance array. We do now. Amy's displays showed systems that hadn't existed moments before. The ship's hull had grown new sections. Its engines had multiplied, and weapons that belonged in theoretical physics textbooks were now part of their arsenal. Firing quantum resonance pulse, Amy reported. The pulse spread outward from the Defiance at the speed of light, washing over the Ultimate Fleet like an invisible wave. Where it touched the alien planet killer weapons, their antimatter cores became unstable. One by one, the largest ships in the Hegemony Fleet began exploding from within. Retreat, Vextar screamed. All ships retreat immediately. But it was too late. The human fighters had evolved beyond simple spacecraft. They moved through space like living creatures, their weapons reaching out to disable fleeing ships with touches that drained power cores and collapsed shields. The Defiance itself had become something that barely resembled the destroyer that had hidden in asteroid fields weeks ago. Its hull flowed like liquid, reshaping itself for each attack. When alien ships tried to ram it, it became insubstantial. When it needed to fire weapons, it solidified and struck with the force of a small star. Jake stood on the bridge, feeling the consciousness of his entire crew merged with the ship's systems. He could sense Amy's engineering knowledge flowing through the hull, Ben's tactical expertise guiding the weapons, and Kate's navigation skills bending space itself around them. Captain, said Pete, his voice full of wonder, the Hegemony Fleet is broadcasting surrender requests. Jake looked at the main screen, where the surviving alien ships hung motionless in space. Of the 10,000 vessels that had arrived to destroy humanity, fewer than half remained functional. The rest were debris or fleeing toward the edge of the system. Tell them, Jake said quietly, that humanity accepts their surrender. But make sure they understand. This galaxy belongs to the children of the architects now, and we're just getting started. As the last alien ships jumped to hyperspace in retreat, the Defiance hung in space surrounded by awakened architect technology. The ancient station pulsed with new life, and throughout the system, dormant facilities that had slept for 50,000 years were opening their eyes. Dr. Carter smiled as she held the artifact, which now glowed with the warm light of coming dawn. Jake, she said, I think we're going home. All of us, the entire human race. How? Jake asked. The Hegemony will spread word of this battle across the galaxy. They'll tell everyone that humans have returned, that we have power beyond imagination. Our people who are hiding in other systems, the survivors who went into deep space. They'll hear and they'll come looking for us. Jake nodded, understanding. The battle was over, but the real war was just beginning. Not a war of conquest, but a war to reclaim humanity's place among the stars. 3 months after the Battle of the Architect Station, the galaxy had changed forever. Word of humanity's victory had spread through every star system, carried by fleeing Hegemony ships and independent traders who witnessed the impossible sight of 10,000 warships defeated by a single human vessel. Captain Jake Miller stood on the observation deck of the transformed Defiance, watching as human ships arrived from across the galaxy. They came in small groups, survivors who had been hiding in distant systems, colony ships that had fled Earth's destruction, and exploration vessels that had been stranded in deep space when the war began. How many now? Jake asked. Dr. Lisa Carter checked her tablet, which now glowed with the same warm light as the architect artifact she carried everywhere. 47 ships so far, with more arriving every day. We estimate about 30,000 humans total. Jake nodded. 30,000 was still a small number compared to the billions who had died when Earth fell, but it was a beginning. More importantly, each ship that arrived brought stories of other survivors, other groups of humans scattered across the galaxy. "Captain," said Amy Brooks from behind him, "the integration process for the new arrivals is complete. All 47 ships now have basic architect technology installed." Amy had changed the most of all of them. Her consciousness was permanently linked to the ship's systems now, allowing her to reshape matter at the quantum level. She could repair damaged vessels by touching them, and her engineering knowledge had expanded to include sciences that didn't exist in human textbooks. "Any problems with the installations?" Jake asked. "A few people had trouble adjusting to the neural connections," Amy replied. "But Dr. Foster's medical team helped them adapt. The children seemed to handle it better than the adults." That didn't surprise Jake. The architect technology responded to human consciousness, but older minds sometimes fought against the connection. Children, with their natural adaptability, accepted the merger more easily. Pete Walsh's voice came over the ship's intercom. "Captain Miller to the bridge. We're receiving a transmission from the Hegemony Council." Jake made his way to the bridge, passing through corridors that shifted and flowed around him. The Defiance no longer looked like the simple destroyer it had once been. The ship had grown, its hull expanding as more humans came aboard and more architect technology awakened. It was becoming something between a warship and a living city. On the bridge, the main screen showed the faces of the 12 Hegemony species leaders. Supreme Admiral Vextar was among them, his blue scales dulled with age and defeat. The others looked equally worn down by 3 months of reports about humanity's growing power. "Humans," spoke the Zephyri representative, its biomechanical voice translator making the words sound strange. "We request a meeting to discuss terms." Jake sat in his captain's chair, which had evolved into something that connected his nervous system directly to the ship's consciousness. Around him, his bridge crew worked at stations that responded to thought as much as touch. "What terms?" Jake asked. "The Hegemony proposes a division of the galaxy," said the Karathi leader. "We will withdraw our forces to the rim systems and leave the core worlds to humanity. There need be no more conflict between us." Ben Rogers laughed from his tactical station. "They want to negotiate now? After 6 months of trying to wipe us out?" Jake held up a hand for silence. "And what guarantee do we have that you won't attack us again when you think you have an advantage?" The alien leaders looked at each other nervously. Finally, the Shardling representative spoke, its crystalline form flickering with uncertain light. "The Hegemony Council formally recognizes humanity as the inheritor species. We acknowledge your claim to architect technology and territory." "Inheritor species," Jake repeated. "What does that mean exactly?" Supreme Admiral Vextar leaned forward, his warrior's pride clearly struggling with the words he had to say. "It means we remember the old stories, human. The legends our ancestors tried to forget. We know what the architects were, and we know what they made you to be." Dr. Carter moved to Jake's side, the artifact in her hands pulsing with gentle light. "They're afraid," she said quietly. "Not just of our technology, but of what we represent. The return of their creator's chosen successors." Jake studied the alien faces on the screen. These were the leaders of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had destroyed Earth and hunted humanity to near extinction. But now they sat in their council chambers begging for mercy from the species they had tried to eliminate. "Here are our terms," Jake said finally. "First, all human survivors will be allowed to return freely to human space. No interference, no attacks, no delays. Second, you will provide full reparations for the destruction of Earth, technology, resources, and labor to help us rebuild. Third, any species that attacks humans or human interests will face the full response of awakened architect technology." The aliens whispered among themselves in their various languages. Jake could see the fear in their eyes, the knowledge that they had no choice but to accept whatever terms humanity offered. "And if we agree to these terms?" asked the Zephyri representative. "Then you get to keep existing," Jake said simply. "The architects created this galaxy for diversity, not domination. There's room for everyone as long as everyone remembers their place." The transmission ended with the aliens agreeing to consider the terms. Jake knew they would accept. They had no other choice. The demonstration at the Architect Station had shown the galaxy that humanity wasn't just another species with advanced weapons. They were something fundamentally different, something that could reshape reality itself. "Captain," said Kate Sullivan from her navigation station, "long-range sensors are detecting more human ships incoming." "Looks like a full colony fleet, maybe 100 vessels," Jake smiled. "Good, Dr. Carter, how is the terraforming project coming along?" "Better than expected," she replied. "The architect technology can reshape entire planets in weeks instead of centuries. We've already identified 12 worlds suitable for human colonization, and we can modify dozens more." Tony Price's voice came over the intercom from the fighter bay. "Captain, the new squadron leaders are ready for their first architect technology test flights." "Send them out," Jake ordered. "But keep them close to the fleet." Through the observation windows, Jake watched as sleek fighters launched from various human ships. These weren't the patched-together craft they had flown during the war. These were purpose-built vessels that merged human engineering with architect science, creating ships that moved like thoughts and struck like lightning. Amy joined him at the window. "It's strange to think that 6 months ago we were hiding in asteroid fields, afraid to power up our engines. 6 months ago, we didn't know what we really were," Jake replied. Dr. Carter approached them, carrying a new artifact, one of dozens they had found in awakened architect facilities. "Jake, I've been studying the historical records in the stations. The architects didn't just disappear 50,000 years ago. They planned this entire sequence of events." "What do you mean?" "They knew the galaxy would fall to species like the hegemony, violent, organized, but limited in imagination. So they planted humanity as a failsafe. When the time was right, when the galaxy needed renewal, their inheritors would awaken and restore balance." Jake looked out at the growing human fleet, at the ships arriving from across the galaxy, at the fighters dancing through space with impossible grace. In the distance, the Architect Station had become the core of a new civilization, its ancient halls filled with human laughter and the sound of children playing. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now we grow," said Dr. Carter. "We explore, we learn. We become what the architects always intended us to be, the gardeners of the galaxy, the species that make sure life and diversity can flourish." Pete's voice interrupted them. "Captain, we're receiving messages from human groups in the Andromeda Galaxy. Apparently, word has spread even that far." Jake felt a moment of vertigo as he realized the true scope of what was happening. Humanity wasn't just reclaiming their home galaxy. They were awakening to their role as inheritors of architect technology throughout the universe. "Send a reply," he said. "Tell them we're coming. Tell them that humanity is going home, to all of our homes." As the Defiance and its growing fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Jake thought about the long journey ahead. There would be challenges, conflicts with species that refused to accept the new reality, and the enormous task of rebuilding human civilization on a galactic scale. But for the first time since Earth's fall, he felt truly hopeful. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had been hunted by impossible odds and turned their hunters into supplicants. Most importantly, they had discovered their true nature, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as the species chosen to guide the galaxy toward its greatest potential. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of promise and possibility, and humanity, the inheritors of the architects, was finally going home.